Free socks.
The NHL playoff picture is still up in the air, but here in Winnipeg, fans are confident the arena will echo with the sound of white noise again.
Free socks.
Let's go! Go, Jets, go! Winnipeg is back in the big leagues and over the moon.
Welcome back to the landing strip, where your boys over here on Top Line Media, Nick and Mikey, are here to break down a humbling overtime defeat, potentially against the Vegas Golden Knights. As usual, want to shout out From Financial supporting the fellas here. Make sure you check them out. We're going to be, like I said, we're working on a segment here. Going to have some fun with it. But before I get rambling on, as I like to do, Mikey, how are you doing tonight? Yeah, and it's hard to come out of that one and feel too comfortable about what that matchup may look like. This was an interesting one. I felt it was a pretty slow developing game. Like, until the Winnipeg Jets score that first goal, I mean, quickly becoming a fan favorite, Nikita Chibrikov. It felt like nothing was really going on in this one. And I know even early on in that second, the Vegas Golden Knights peppered the Jets with shots, but it didn't feel like one of those periods where they were dangerous shots. Now, there were some great chances. Hellebuyck, especially in that first period, late in that first, makes some awfully massive saves. That one backdoor was right in front of me. Just watching that guy go to work is a ton of fun. Thanks to Carson and Jess for bringing their favorite third wheel along for the game tonight in the expensive seats, let's say. So got a good view of that save early in the first. But in that second period, obviously I think Vegas controls that period, but they didn't feel all that dangerous till the end of that period. Frustrating one for Winnipeg. Like you said, it's probably the type of period you could snooze through and feel awfully good about that decision heading into the third.
Yep.
And then the third period comes around. Keegan Colasar, Winnipeg boy, obviously someone that's given this podcast some time and attention.
Friend of the pod, baby.
Friend of the pod, eh? Puts Vegas on the board with an absolute snipe there. Mikey, there we go. I see. You're all over it. You're all over it. With one of those plays where Logan Stanley shovels the puck up Kyle Connor's ass.
Yep.
Mark Scheifele gets caught cheating a bit on a puck that was a 50-50 puck. And Keegan Colasar sitting there in the slot for a nice rip for the pending UFA. Yep. Brings this game to 1-1.
And for anybody in the chat who doesn't know, Keegan Colasar sat down with us to do an interview. So if you go back and check on our YouTube page, on our Facebook page, you can see that sit down that we got to have with Keegs right after they won the Stanley Cup. It was a good time. Yeah,
going into last season, great dude. Someone I played hockey with growing up, and obviously a bit of a pain today. I thought he had a really good night. Scores on the Jets, not fun, but good to see a good Winnipeg guy doing well as well, and someone that's given this podcast and us the time of day. So got to shout it out. Josh Morrissey goes all elite with that slap shot goal assisted by Dylan DeMello. He could not have picked a better spot. Short side clapper.
Yep.
DeMello goes D to D all the way across the blue. Morrissey has nothing but time and space to load up that clapper. And just beautiful, man. And talk about a guy that understands the moment. His celebrations in tight, big games was great to see. It got me fired up. Really thought that might be the tipping point. And then the Winnipeg Jets go down. 2 guys late in the third. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that a lot. I know the chat's going to be fired up about that. And on the ensuing power plays, the Vegas Golden Knights power play goes to work. Shea Theodore, gorgeous feed to Stone, cross ice down to that back post, who slides it over to Olofsson. The Winnipeg Jets just have no chance on a 6-on-3. And this game goes to overtime. And we saw some chances both ways. The Winnipeg Jets were really strong early on in this overtime. It might be a good day to talk about Cole Perfetti, who I liked a lot of his game and what he brought today. And unfortunately, it ends on a tough play. A tough play from an interesting 3-on-3 group. Probably 3 guys you're not going to see often around the NHL out there for 3-on-3. Vlad Nemestikov, Nino Niederreiter, and Hayden Fleury. And I got a lot of texts about the line change, which happens. I think this goal is unfortunately on Hayden Fleury, who we've talked about is playing some good puck in some elevated minutes. He's been thrust into a role that no one was expecting, and he's had his moments. I don't know if 3-on-3 is that spot, and it's interesting because I really like how Nino plays that. You could tell Nino and Vlad were just done, ready to go for a change. Nino wins the possession and sends it back to Fleury so that they can change and get 2 fresh guys out there. Unfortunately, Hayden Fleury in that moment shovels it back right up the boards. And this one's over as Shea Theodore goes 2-on-1 with Barbashev against Hayden Fleury, makes the pass over. Barbashev buries. And the old Moose Knuckler who says, "Nice jersey, baby," called this one going into overtime. He had Barbashev as the winner. So we got to shout out Carson on that one. And this one's over. And we're here to talk about it. Any takeaways for Mikey before we head to the chat and the phone lines?
Just a couple of the things that you just briefly touched on, right? Nice to see Chibs get another goal, 3 games, 3 goals, on pace to break Ovi's record in only 892 games. So, he's gonna, that's real good to see. It's going to be interesting if he keeps putting up points and keeps putting in efforts like that defensive play where he dives across to break up the 2-on-1. It's going to be hard to send him back down, Is he going to make himself undeniable? I don't know. I'm real excited to watch and see, though. And, sorry about that. And
no worries.
And Connor Hellebuyck. I just don't know what this team would be without Connor Hellebuyck. And of course, the most important thing, the thing that was touched on, I think, 5 different times during the broadcast, so you know that this is a key and crucial thing. Did you know Vlad Nemestikov and Nikita Chibrikov both speak Russian?
No way.
Did you know that? And that sometimes they speak to each other in Russian out on the ice.
No, come on, Mike.
I was blown away. The first 4 times I couldn't believe it, but when Kevin Sawyer told us for the 5th time tonight, then I finally got it. So,
hey, we're gonna open up the phone line soon here. We got some eager callers. That's good to see. We'll get that going shortly. Sorry, Mikey. Continue on there, buddy.
That's all. I just had to poke fun at that because we heard it all night long. Sorry about that.
Someone's not listening.
Sorry, that's my bad.
So hey, we'll get there. We'll open it up, but I got to do a little show and tell because the group chat the chat's already talking about it. The Moose Struckler says, "Nice jersey, baby." Scott Westman, as usual, the first to point out. Okay, why isn't Nick wearing the usual pink hoodie? I had to do it. It was South Asian night at the rink tonight, and
that thing is just stunning. What a gorgeous design.
Signed at Nick Ehlers? Come on. My boy was up there. It was the only one with the multicolored numbers. Yeah, you had to get sucked in a little bit there. So that's why no sweater tonight. Got to show off the new pickup. South Asian night, the Winnipeg Jets continue to knock out these specialty nights out of the park. It was an absolute blast. One of the ambassadors they had on the Jumbotron was absolutely hilarious in the 3rd period. They're interviewing this guy, and he had 2 things to say to the crowd. The first, pulls out of his pocket his 50-50 tickets, saying he was excited to win his 50-50 whenever it got drawn. And the second was "Go Jets Go." Made me laugh. In the concourse.
Yeah.
They had some traditional Indian music and dancers going in between intermission,
Oh,
and I
hell
gotta
yeah.
say their music is absolutely lit.
Yep.
So hey, a good night at the ballpark despite the
Result
ending.
on the ice. Yep.
Yeah, so just a couple things to shout out there. But we got some anxious callers apparently that are just demanding to get in. So let's open those phone
All right,
lines.
I'll open it up
Let's
now.
start jumping in the chat and let's see where the show goes tonight. As we wait, I'll start diving in the chat. Mikey, you take care of that.
Yep.
Choices TK opens up with a paragraph. And you know I like to read out the paragraphs for the people. I know the chat sometimes isn't looking to do all the reading. I'll do it for you here. Choices TK's takeaway, first comment in the Twitch chat tonight is a couple of opportunistic goals, and a lot of 37 gave them a chance to win, but hard to win when the refs decide to pull the whistle out twice in the last 2 minutes, and your first line doesn't show up. Brackets, no consistency.
Yep.
This is the level of competition your first line must have success against in the playoffs, and you seldom have been up to task. We're going to get more into that. We got a call. Let's jump over to it.
Right on. Thanks for holding. You're on the landing strip.
I got two things for you, Nick.
Okay, let's hear it.
Were Dan Eliason and Marty Gagne in the crowd today? And would Dan Eliason take credit for that Kolsar goal, saying he taught him how to shoot the puck like that back at Gateway Blue?
That guy would probably take some credit for, just benching Kolsar all year and making him not want to play hockey anymore, but he'd probably take the credit for it.
Have a great night.
All right, you have a great night too. Appreciate that. There's someone that knows a little Winnipeg hockey history.
There's some more.
Have a good one, Pierogies. Back to Choice's comment here. I think there's a lot of truth in this one, though. I think there's a lot of discussions we're going to dive in past just this one tonight. Connor Hellebuyck is the best in the world, and he does give this team a chance to win tonight. And Vegas, the one thing, I went to the game with the Moose Knuckler, Carson, in the chat here. And before the game, my game prediction was 3-1 Vegas, and my thought was that the top line was going to struggle to generate offense against Vegas, who does a very, very good job of plugging up the slot defensively. And it was a game where it's just not a group that is able to get through and do much with it. I mean, the most impressive line today is probably that Nemestikov, Chibrikov, Perfetti line, and that's a line I think a lot of people have size concerns about come playoffs, and this is the type of team you're going to be playing.
Yep, absolutely. That's the ironic part of it, right? The line that everybody would peg as going, oh, that's not the one you want to play against Vegas, is the one who actually had a little bit of space tonight.
Mm-hmm. Back to the phone.
Back to
Some
the
early
phones.
calls tonight.
Hi, caller. You're on the landing strip. Thanks for holding.
Good evening. It's Slick from the chat. How you doing? You all right?
Slick, how are you?
Hey, Slick, what's going on?
Yeah, not too bad, thank you. Not too bad. Nice to be on. Thanks for hosting another great show, guys. Looking forward to it. I'll keep it brief so I don't need to remortgage the house. So obviously lots to talk about tonight, right? The reffing calls at the end, not getting enough shots on goal. But I think the most important question for me to ask is, will Mark Stone be back on LTIR after attempting 2.5 pipe turns on the ice?
Slick, I love the humor.
Rope, right? Like,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wild. Anyway.
Hey, milestone night, first European call on the landing strip. Thanks for calling in, Slick. And I told Slick in Discord this week, we're going to try and figure out a way these calls can be a little more affordable for him, Mikey. So that's a little project of ours.
Yeah.
When he calls in.
Well, we'll get you my my contact info, Slick. We can make that happen. No problem.
Cool. Anyway, enjoy the show, guys. And,
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Take it easy.
Thank you. Yeah, take it easy, Slick. And he touches on a lot of things. Obviously, the lack of shots. We're going to be talking about that. Second period. Man, I had tickets in the second period at the Winnipeg Jets attack zone, and they gave nothing for me to enjoy up close. Slick nails the end of the game and the two calls in the last couple minutes. We're going to be discussing that right away here. And I got to say, Slick, the accent made my night. You can call in anytime, buddy. And as far as Stone on the LTIR, I imagine we see it at some point, though he's got 4 nations to get to. So maybe we see it momentarily. He goes to 4 nations and then miraculously ends up back on it. I guess we'll see as this season plays out.
Ready for the next call?
Ready for it.
Hey, caller. Thanks for
Hello?
holding. You're on the landing strip.
What's going on, Lionel?
Hey, who is this? How's it
Ryan
going?
Han calling in.
Hell, Hander, I saw you at the rink today. A couple beers in, eh?
Yes, I did. Just in the
How you
drive-through at
doing?
A&W after a good W for Vegas. How are ya?
Hey, this is a jet show. I don't know if goods is what we're looking for. Come on, Hando.
Tenders, the 5-piece, and
Hey,
fries, please.
come on. Good game out of the 55 car.
Yeah.
Yeah, could I do?
I don't know about that.
But hey, on a serious note though, that Josh Morrissey rip. Oh my God.
That Josh
That
Morrissey,
was-
I'm going to be watching that.
That,
I'm going to be
that
watching
was
that 100
gross.
times before
That
bed.
was gross. Good Team Canada defenseman right there. Looking forward to Four Nations face off.
Instead of the normal fries.
Jets need a good bounce back
And
coming
that's
up
everything.
against the Habs. Let's go. Go Jets, go.
Hey, I appreciate the call, Hando. I know you had a great night. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for giving us a call. Four Nations, I'm looking forward to JMO being there as well. And Mikey's Habs might be just what the doctor ordered on a bounce back. How are you feeling about that, Mikey?
Oh, I'm all right with that one. They're going to be bringing the NHL's leader in shutouts, Sam Montembeault, the real Four Nations goalie, to town. So I think it'll be a good night.
Hey, I think it's going to be a good night. I'm looking forward to going with you, buddy.
It'll be fun.
Let's get over to YouTube now, which we've neglected at this point. Early rush of some guys having a great night on the phones.
And hopefully
of
picking
course,
us up
Slick.
some fast food.
I'm pumped about the Slick one. I'm glad the chat bullied him into calling finally. I'm excited about Slick McGuire tuning in. And I see Scott Westman, I believe it was, saying, get this guy a top line hoodie. Hey, Slick, I'm just saying in June, I might be making my way out to Europe. I could bring you some merch. We'll hook a guy up like that.
Oh, yeah.
But let's get back to some of the hockey talk. Let's talk about the end of this game, because I see Turd Ferguson, his first comment on YouTube is Vegas Golden refs really showed up late in the third to put the pressure on. How does Mikey see how this game ended, both in the last 3 minutes plus overtime, as far as the refs go?
I'm not one to complain about the refs generally. You get calls that you don't deserve sometimes. You get called on things you don't deserve sometimes. Over the course of a season, it balances out. I'm not one to buy into the refs hate us. They're out to get us. Bettman, yada yada. You know, that's not my jam. Do I think it was a good call? The tripping one? No, that was weak. That was that was a bad call. Those happen. Gabe Velarde, that was a penalty and a bad place and time to take it. So, yeah, it sucks. It sucks when you're on the receiving end of those, but they balance out over time. So I'm not too concerned with, how that goes. I think that's just hockey. That's part of the human error of the game. We don't have robots, reffing the games. They're going to make stupid calls sometimes, bad calls sometimes, and sometimes you get screwed by it. And it's not like the Jets deserve to win that game anyways, you know what I mean? So.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to give the people what they want on this night.
Excellent.
Because that second trip really pisses me the fuck off, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
I don't have an issue with the Velarde one. I think that's a real easy one to call, even though I do think the defenseman goes down really easy looking at the replay. Like, that's one of those ones, just looking at the guy, you could say trip and a dive and keep it 5-on-5 late in a game. Though I also have no problem with the ref's vantage point. That's probably an easy one to call. Like, it just looks real tough. The second trip for me, I have a big problem with. I think that's an absolute horseshit level of a call, especially when the team's already down a guy. It's a 1-goal hockey game in the last few minutes, and it's just a soft call. It is like, talk about like giving a team the chance to win even before they get to overtime. And trust me, Vegas deserves to win this hockey game. I just hate that second call. I will say this, the way I see it, I haven't seen a replay. I came right from the rink, jumped right into here. I didn't mind, and I saw some uproar on social media and on Facebook, or I guess that is social media, about the no call on Howden in the OT.
Yep.
That was right in front of where I was sitting, and my takeaway seeing that play was I actually thought Howden nailed it defensively as far as timing and impact on that play. So I had no problem with a non-call there, though I also get why people would want to call there when that 5-on-3 penalty is just, it can't happen. It can't happen in the National Hockey League with refs making as much money as they do to pull the whistle out on that play. This game might still end up in overtime with Vegas tying this on the power play, but to give them a 6-on-3 to end this is just insane to me.
Especially Vegas, who's perfect when they're 5-on-3 this year. They've scored every opportunity that they've had at 5-on-3, right? So, yeah, like it's a bad call. It sucks, but like I said, the Jets didn't deserve to be going there to win that game anyways, the way they had overall effort in that one. So the fact that we got to overtime and stole that point away was at least something.
Yeah, and the chat definitely agrees. Turd Ferguson says, I never complain about the refs, but that second call was horseshit. Yep. Phyllis says, yep, Gabe's penalty was penalty for sure, but the second one was a dive. Yep. Spency's here saying Vegas gold medal divers. Love that. And also comments on DeMello doesn't touch his skate. He hit the boards. Yep. I hate everything about that call in that moment. Just the situation of it, the actual play itself, the fact that it's already a power play and you never see a team. Like in hockey, refs overmanage hockey games, honestly, to a fault. Yep. And it's because they don't want to slow the game down and whatnot, as far as keeping the pace of the game, not making it a special teams filled game. Normally, you don't see them manage a game and award a team a second penalty to go down 6-on-3 like that late, especially on a play like that. I hate everything about it. Like I said, I do think Vegas is the better team in this one, and it's an easy cop out to say the refs. But man, that second penalty on DeMello, I just can't get behind. Yeah, it was bad. It was a bad call, straight up. And, like to be fair, we have seen a lot in the past of, certain referees having issues with certain coaches or certain players and things boiling over and, makeup calls going in certain directions. So, yeah, it wasn't great. Not a good look for the league, but hey, the Jets still stole a point. And like Choices TK says in the chat, picked up a point while the Stars, Avs, and Wild all lost. Yeah, and hey, that's a great aspect to this as well. Gaining points when the teams around you don't is always a good thing. And to get that extra point today, huge. Or not the extra point, sorry, but the one, huge. I see Slick says he plans on being in the Peg in April. And to that I say, Slick, you let me know which tavern and the beers will be on me, buddy. What else do we got going over on YouTube today? Perfetti better in OT than I expected from Matt Hyman. Let's talk a little bit about Cole Perfetti today. Hey. Obviously, he's been a bit of a polarizing guy in our chat on our shows from some calls of late. Very excited about some of the stuff I saw from Cole tonight. What did you see, Mikey? His the overtime shift was really what kind of stood out as overall like a good analogy for his game tonight. He was strong on the puck. He was dogged. I texted you during the game. I don't know how anybody can watch Cole Perfetti play tonight and say he's too small or he's not strong enough. Like he uses his size and his positioning really well. He's strong on his stick. I was real impressed with his overall game. And like I said, the points are going to come. He's getting himself in the right position, and that's what I want to see from him. Both with the puck and without the puck. He's putting himself in the right spot. He can see the game well. That hockey IQ was what really excited us when they drafted Cole Perfetti, and we're getting to see it now. I really liked his game. We've got a couple people in the chat who agreed. Lucas Trapp started off the show. Perfetti was quite good in the overtime. So, yeah, you were there. What did you see from Cole? Yeah, so obviously a lot of hype of his OT shifts, which it was nice to see him finally get a couple in overtime for this hockey team. Obviously, injuries might have helped with that. But, hey, we see Cole Perfetti forecheck on Noah Hannafin, who's at the Four Nations with Team USA, create a turnover, and create a great look for Josh Morrissey. Then we see him forecheck, win a battle, and try and come out to the net for a bit of a look himself, fans on it. I like to see that in overtime as a guy trying to put this team into the win column. But the play that I really like, and I'm sure it'll be talked about quite a bit, it leads to a goal. Chibrikov's going to get all the hype for bearing that rebound. And we're going to talk about Chibrikov in a second here. I think it's just a great lead way from Perfetti to Chibrikov. But that whole play starts, and you talk about the high IQ and the game within the game. The one thing Cole Perfetti really does, and it's something I really appreciate about what Nick Ehlers does, on that initial rush through the neutral zone into the offensive zone, Cole Perfetti attacks the middle of the ice. So what that does is it makes not only his guy have to make a move on him, it tends to tighten both defenders in case that guy gets beat. Yep. He's able to move the puck over to Nemestikov, who gets that wide shot. But because of that tightening that Cole Perfetti creates by driving the middle, they forget all about Nikita Chibrikov as he drives to the net to bang that away. And it's those little details within his game. I thought the battling was strong. I think that, like you said, I think the point creation is going to come. He just does so many good things within a game. And yeah, we talked about it with Pierogies a couple shows ago. The pace isn't going to be a specialty of Cole Perfetti's game. But I think a night like tonight, hey, that's what you could get from Cole Perfetti against a quality opponent. He was a good hockey player tonight, man.
It almost kind of wanted me to see Cole Perfetti back at center on that line, as opposed to Vlad Nemestikov, especially on the goal itself, the way that because that line looks better when he's carrying the puck, when he's the one kind of leading the charge there. And I wouldn't mind just to take just a peek at it sometime with those wingers, with Chibrikov still there and Nemestikov maybe on the other side.
I would not get your hopes up on seeing
him
no. back.
They won't ever do it. That's just like I said, something I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Let's move over to Chibrikov on this night, who 2 games now, scores in all 3 of his NHL games dating back to last year. What's your thoughts on Nikita Chibrikov? And I got a text from DB204 who was talking about last game already. Nikita Chibrikov, it's time to start looking for houses. He texted me after the game today. Might not be on the show, but Chibi is looking at houses, and Helly again and again makes it look respectable. We touched on Hellebuyck. He's this team star player. It's the only reason this game's close.
Yep.
What do you think about Nikita Chibrikov? Is he working his way to a permanent house on the Winnipeg Jets roster?
If this pace keeps up, I don't know how you keep him out of there. And it's not just the goals, right? He's not going to score a goal every game. That's just not something that happens, right? That's nothing realistic. But it's the fact that he's doing the right things. That line looks much better with him on it. Him and Nemestikov can communicate and Russian together out on the ice. I don't know if you knew that. And he's doing the little things right. That defensive play to break up the 2-on-1 at the end of the first was just, again, something you want to see from him to keep that spot. I'm just really hoping that, when Ehlers comes back, that they can find a way to keep Chibi in and create that little bit of a domino effect and move maybe Nemestikov down to that 4th line and let Chibrikov play with whoever. Or actually, I don't know how they're going to work it. I'm not even going to bother trying to, because we've gone over at length the different, but you know what I mean, right? Just getting to move some of the talent around. Yeah,
no, I hear you there. And after Chibi scores that goal, I start watching him a little closer, thinking that this would be a bit of a talking point. And I think he's definitely continues to be the type of player that's going to excite people. Obviously scores the big goal. Any Winnipeg Jet driving the net and bearing rebounds and putting things away, I talk about it all the time with the frustration that the Jets don't get to those areas enough. Sign me up. Any forward that's going to be willing to get there and bang something away, sign me up. As someone that, I've made it no secret, I do love shit disturbers. I love guys that play with a little bit of an edge.
We love a pest.
For a guy that's in his 3rd NHL game, the entire last shift in the first period, he's just following William Karlsson around the zone, like whacking him, cross-checking him, and just bugging him. For someone that's just getting into the league, it's one of those things I like to watch a little bit up in person.
Yep.
And I would like, this is still a rookie that's going to have some speed bumps.
Yep.
But he's someone that's very active within the game. As far as like defensively, there's plays where he's in the corner winning battles. He's blocking shots. In the first period, I made a note of him blocking a shot shortly after that goal. He's doing a lot of those things that's going to endear him to a lot of people. And this is a guy, you're talking about potentially keeping that line together. Don't see it happening. We know some of the rules in place with the 1st and 3rd line in Winnipeg, and it's just no point in talking about it because they're never going to break it up. I will say, we've talked a lot about Kupari's speed bringing an element to that fourth line.
Yep.
And really being able to carry the puck into that O zone for them. He's been a guy that's drawn a ton of penalties. We talk a lot about a guy like Alex Iafallo being that veteran you could trust. Don't worry about the contract right now. It's in the books. He's a defensive stopper who could turn the puck up the other way. You know what you're getting out of him. I think it's time to give them a shit-disturbing offensive winger on that fourth line when Nick Ehlers gets healthy. That's where I'm starting to go.
Yeah, give him Chibs. Let's do it. I mean, I wouldn't mind actually seeing him even a line above that in place of Mason Appleton, but I know that's a non-starter. But yeah, I would absolutely love him with Kupari and Iafallo. Barron's obviously the weakest of that three of that current combo. And it's funny, though, just how much different that fourth line looks with Kupari and without Kupari, right? We've seen it in those few games now, and just that extra level of speed is just so much nice. The Jets need it, They need that speed. And then, yeah, if you give them Chibrikov and add on to that, yeah, you don't lose anything off of it, and you may still you'll tilt those minutes even more in your favor.
Yeah, and it's one of those things, like we do talk about this team needing to find more offense, especially at 5-on-5. And it's you're not asking Chibrikov to save that from the fourth line, but hey, it's someone that could potentially help with that side of the game and give you a little more outside of just a grinded out fourth line, and just see where his game grows from there. I really like the idea. That's kind of where I'm looking at things as we get moving into this a little bit further. Phyllis also points out he's been on PP2, though we saw that with Brad Lambert as well, and I think that's just more of the position on the roster and what else is available for the second power play. But maybe that is something. If he keeps producing, it's going to be real hard to take him out of this lineup.
Yeah, it would be great to see him get those minutes with Kupari and Iafallo, as opposed to getting sent back down to the Moose, because on nights where the first line is going to be non-existent, the Jets have to then do it by committee, and I'll take as many of those lottery tickets as I can get.
You know what's so frustrating about the top line at times? Like, obviously, hyping them up last game, big game, 3 goals at 5-on-5, get an extra point on the PP. And it's just like every time they put one together, you can just expect a game like this. Like they got outshot attempted 24-8 tonight.
Yep.
11-2 in scoring chances.
A 15-plus minute stretch of no shots on goal across 2 periods. It's just I can't remember which person in the chat mentioned it during the last game. So apologies, but somebody pointed out again how if they're playing a team that speed isn't really their focus, that first line can go out there and, have that game that they did and, put up a combined 8 points or whatever it was. And then as soon as you get a team that can skate a little bit and can actually have some exits, it just all falls apart. As soon as another team can attack the neutral zone, it all falls apart because that first line just doesn't have the ability to deal with that high level of speed. And it's frustrating.
It is, and it's like this team lives and dies by it, and that's why it's such a bigger discussion. But this was an example of a night where it's just not going to be there for the Winnipeg Jets when that group's not going.
Yep.
Yeah, no, it's frustrating. I see, as I was talking to actually, me and Slick were on the same wavelength here. I saw him typing this as I was building it up. He says 90, 15-9 as well. Yours truly agrees. It's something I'd be intrigued by.
100%.
T. Conapoli, I'm just going to throw this out there. I see it's the second time he said Jaden Schwartz 2C. Jaden Schwartz is majority played left wing, and I don't think he's going to solve the center hole the Winnipeg Jets currently have. Severson and Olivier, he also brings up. Severson's a very interesting right-hand D. He's a guy that I think he's basically what a lot of people see Pionk is.
Yeah.
But actually like more consistent on what he drives up the other way, though his big brain farts, it's bad. Like he just falls asleep in the middle of games, but I do think he's the type of guy that could upgrade this team, can move the puck, he could skate. And Matthew Olivier obviously kind of fits that tougher bottom 6 mold that people might want to see after some of the scraps the other night. It's an interesting set. I do think they need to aim higher offensively, but it's still an interesting group that could potentially help this team.
Yep, absolutely. If they're looking to add more depth at that point, it definitely doesn't hurt.
Julian pops in over at YouTube, says, hates the call, but if the Jets had more pressure, this game could have been 3-1, 4-1. The lack of pressure against a heavy team that they might see in the playoffs is a problem. Let's talk about that for a minute. Where do you want to go with that thought?
You hit me first.
Okay. I agree. And it's games like this where Vegas would be a very tough Winnipeg Jets first round matchup. You look at how they're built. They've really figured out that team defensively. They have the high-end game breakers to take over a game and end it. But I do think like the key is the Winnipeg Jets had a chance to win this hockey game, and they couldn't apply any pressure. And for me, it's becoming a bit more back into that speed convo. I was talking to, I don't know if he's in the chat tonight, Tony throughout the game. And one thing I've kind of noticed is, and we've talked about how teams have kind of figured the Winnipeg Jets out as far as spamming shots to the net and then getting to the slot and winning those puck races, winning those second opportunities. I'm wondering if some of that could simply be put under the umbrella of this team's lack of speed. It seems like they know the structure side of it, but when they have to make adjustments outside of the structure, it's a bit, I don't know if I would say what I've seen is they look late to some of those, and that's why that becomes a problem with them. And I think that comes into play when you're talking about pressure, whether it being on the boards on a guy to create a turnover or on the forecheck, all those things come up. And I'm starting to wonder if it's not a system thing, but a lack of speed in Winnipeg. We know it was a thing for them last year, and it's just something I've been wondering about more and more watching this team. And Julian's point kind of brought that back to my mind here.
Yeah, I think it kind of leads to being both, right? It's a lack of speed and then not changing the system to adjust for that. Scott Arniel talks in the media quite frequently about we're a team with speed. When we're successful, we're playing with speed. We're attacking the neutral zone. Speed. We're going to, and really they don't have a lot of it in the lineup. It's just, especially with some of the lineup decisions that get made sometimes, leaving a lot of it off for much slower reacting players. Like, speed isn't just how fast you can skate without the puck, right? It's how fast you're moving with the puck, how fast you're thinking the game, and applying that speed in the right spots, right? And it just feels like they don't have quite the horses to play with the system that they really want to.
Okay. And I think my answer is going to maybe surprise people just based on what I was just saying. But I want your answer here first. I was asked a question on Twitter. Or no, not asked. Someone tweeted at me. Ryan Wakshinsky. Sorry if I mispronounced that. I am terrible with names. If you've listened to the show, you know. Tweeted at me after the game when I put out the post about this show starting up. They're better than us, and they'll get better at the deadline. It's a steep hill to climb. Do you believe the hill is steep for the Winnipeg Jets to catch up to teams like Vegas come playoff time?
It's going to come down to health. If Nick Ehlers and Dylan Sandberg are in the lineup come playoff time, and the Jets have made the splash ad that we're really kind of hoping for, then no, I don't think it is a steep hill. But that's going to come down to, it looked the way it did tonight. Like you said, there's no speed. Well, Nick Ehlers, definitely adds a nice layer to that. Dylan Sandberg really helps stabilize that back end and open up Neil Pionk to skate a lot more, right? So there are things that those guys will add in. Plus, we absolutely expect them to find something at the deadline that's going to, hopefully put them over. So no, I don't think it's a steep hill, but I do think that they don't have the high-end depth that other teams do. So if the Jets take a few, one or two big names off the board from the group, then yeah, it's not going to go very far. So we're going to need a lot of luck to make sure that, that whole group is going to be there, or at least as many of them as possible.
Yeah, like I've made, I think my position on just where I see the Winnipeg Jets come playoff time is pretty clear at this point. And yet I don't think the hill's that steep. Now it's going to come down to the organization making moves, and that comes within the lineup, and I'm going to bounce there because I see a comment about it. But like you said, Sandberg's missing from this one. Nick Ehlers is missing from this one. This is a game they still could have won, despite most of that being on the back of Connor Hellebuyck. And we know this team has cap space. This team has a pretty good, not great. You don't have the elite guys to trade from in the prospect pool, but a pretty good prospect pool. And a team that say what you want about Chevy, and I have my downsides when it comes to him. He's always added when this team's shown it.
Yep.
I think a lot of the teams in the West are close. I don't see any real elite teams. Now, it doesn't mean that the Winnipeg Jets are at the top of that list, and I wouldn't have them there. I just, if Chevy goes swinging, I think this team's right in there. I really do.
Yep, especially if the big swing comes on D. Then I'm going to be a lot more into the idea that this is a team that can push and that they can, steal around from, a quote-unquote better team from them. And at that point, anything's possible with Connor Hellebuyck in a 7-game series.
Slick says it's so tight at the top, I wouldn't call any of these matchups steep. One team playing their lights out puts the other team over the top. It's not like a series that would be 0-4 10 out of 10 times. And that's something I would agree with. Choices also on that topic says, depends how stubborn the coaching staff is in making the necessary changes and adjustments to win. And I do think that is the aspect is everything about this team is going to come down to the Winnipeg Jets looking at themselves and being willing to change. And then also adding some talent from outside the arena. Will that happen? I mean, we've known the org for how long at this point? Maybe it's a big ask to expect them to change now. But hey, I will remain internally optimistic that at some point someone falls on their head and says, hey, we could try some new things. Because as Julian over on YouTube says, it is well past the time to shake these lines up. Consistently leaving the first and third lines intact is holding this team back. The lines are imbalanced. And I think there's a few different ways to go about this one. We're 30 games in. What, 31?
31.
31?
Yep.
31 games in. And even before this one, the Winnipeg Jets had 4 of the top 20 most played lines at 5-on-5. They've played the same lineup every night. And a lot of it is because we know this team sees the first line is it's going to at some point magically become this elite group. And they show flashes. Like they give the team hope after the Boston game. We know it's not going to happen consistently, but it gives them more hope. The third line, they see as the ultimate shutdown line. Though the interesting thing with that line, and this is a good identity line, I don't want this to be misconstrued. As the season gets deeper, we saw this last year, and I think it played into that losing stretch a little bit. We see that line used more and more for hard matchups against top comp, and they aren't necessarily as dominant against that type of stuff. Yeah. The other side of it too, if you're running a business, you're running an organization, you're running a hockey team, you're running anything, don't you want to know the full scope of your business before making some big business deciding moves in the next couple months?
Right.
Like at some point, even just a shakeup, just to give a spark or see something new or just to see what else can be brought out of this group. I know it's tough sledding with the injuries, but I mean, at some point you could, again, they win 3 of the last 4, kind of said this was going to happen during that show a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
But at some point you got to see what's consistently been true for a lot of these groups over the last year and a half and be willing to at least try something different for a little bit of a stretch. Doesn't mean you're married to it, but right now you're married to one configuration, and I think it limits the Winnipeg Jets and what they potentially can be as the season goes on, and that is frustrating.
Yeah, it's one thing if this was a 10-game stretch that this first line was on where it doesn't look great, or just a 20-game stretch, or even just this one season. We know how this works with this group. They've played quite a few games together. We have a lot of data, and it doesn't matter if the rest of the top 6 or top 9 is healthy or injured. This is the group that stays together when the options are there and when the options aren't there. It's just the way that they've decided that this is going to be. Outside of, you did point out that when PLD was first brought in, there was some excitement around it, and you did have Kyle Connor playing with PLD at that time because that was, maybe viewed as an upgrade for him. I don't know how all the, machinations worked, but at least it created an environment where it was okay for Scheifele and Connor not to play together.
Yeah.
So it just, if they make a big enough ad, then, maybe there's a chance at moving things around. But outside of it, I don't know if I see it happening.
We shall see. And sticking on this topic, but bouncing around some of the YouTube comments, Spency says Jets definitely need to be big swinging D to win.
Harrison
Ticona says, Nick, that's never happening, and trust me, Ticona, I don't think it is either. But hey, you gotta stay optimistic at times.
Harrison on Twitch, HL Living Loco. The changes they need to make internally really aren't that drastic. They make a couple of swaps, and things could rapidly improve. It's just the annoying HR side, and that's kind of how I feel as well.
Yes, and then I want to touch on this, and then I want to bounce over to the D, where I see DB204 is bringing it up, and I think there's some conversations to be had on the D side of the puck tonight. But Slick nails exactly how I see forecasting an NHL lineup. He says, do you think we can get some identity pairs going rather than whole lines?
Oh.
And I think that's exactly
Slick.
Exactly.
Slick, a man after my own heart.
Yeah, that's exactly what I want to see. Also, I might have read something I wasn't supposed to, and the chat's given it to me. I must have misread what Spency said, or I missed Hey, I'm going to embarrass myself a few times here, but that's okay. But when you're looking at this, let's stick to the identity pairs. If you look at the Winnipeg Jets, they right now basically want to run two skill groups. One of them being, no matter what, Velarde, Scheifele, Connor, and then they want to try whatever they have left for skill. They're putting it together and hoping it works. And then they have two grind lines. Obviously, Adam Lowry's line being that group. We talk about them consistently being that driving grind group. And then that fourth line's developed that mold. Now, I do think we do need to see that fourth line chip in a bit more. But that's how the Jets have seen their lineup. And the Jets have seen that as the ideal way of going about business. But when I look at the Winnipeg Jets, I look at a team that has some real good skill. There's some quality skill on the Winnipeg Jets team. Though because they lack the top-end players, like a Jack Eichel, who we got to watch today, or a Mark Stone when he's healthy, that is able to take over a game on their own more consistently, I think the Winnipeg Jets need to move to the idea of having a top 9 group that could all produce offensively rather than giving up those minutes to try and play that shutdown game that if you don't end in a tie, you might lose that night, because it puts pressure on those two skill groups to produce even more. So when I'm looking at the Winnipeg Jets, I think there is pairs you go to. And I think those pairs consist of Mark Scheifele and Nick Ehlers. It's the one thing that's always worked, despite it never getting full-time run. I think you look at Cole Perfetti and Kyle Connor, or Kyle Connor and Adam Lowry. And then I look at Nino Niederreiter being the driver of a third line. Maybe Chibrikov's out there with him, and you find Nemestikov in the middle. I just think there's ways you can deepen out the top 9 of this group, spread the offense over 3 lines, and it would benefit this group as a whole. Now, will we see it? Probably not. But when you talk about identity pairs, this is exactly what I see when trying to build an NHL lineup. This is what I think the Winnipeg Jets should be trying, and I'm just so happy you went there.
Yeah, we've got some of the best chatters out here. Again, over in the Twitch chat, Harrison puts it exactly the way that it comes out to my brain as well. They need to win by committee. That is their strength, and the way they arrange their team is completely antithetical to maximizing their depth. They have the horses where they could put together a skilled scoring top 9, putting guys who work together as pairs, and then having an additional player on that line that you can swap through. You can decide who's going to work the best, find that chemistry, see what that line needs. But you do have those, identity pairs that you could work with. They just refuse to do it because of, backstage background type of issues. And it's a little frustrating.
I think Ticona nails it when he says, in the Jets' eyes, they have those identity pairs. And I think that's where that gets complicated, because I do think he's right when he says that. But let's move to the D, because there's some conversations to be had there. DB_204 says, I honestly am not as worried about the Fs as I am with the D. I don't think our 8D will stand up by game 83 onward. So obviously today, we saw DeMello Morrissey, Pionk, Fleury, and Heinola Stanley. We see Heinola get benched late. them go to 5D, likely signaling Colin Miller will play against the Habs with Logan Stanley on Saturday. Where are you at with this decor, the D picture as a whole, and what DB's talking about as we move into the deadline and beyond?
A bit of a theme, it feels like, is just like questionable decisions, you know, whether it's maximizing the forwards usage, whether it's the playing. Like, how does Heinola get sat after a goal where Logan Stanley throws up on his skates? I don't quite understand. Where am I watching a different game? Like, is Heinola actually going out there and just like, did he kick somebody in the balls? Like, I don't get it. I'm not sure what I've been missing, where he seems to take the brunt of the coach's wrath, or whatever you want to call it, for getting sat. But it's a weird situation overall. The depth isn't there for this D. It just isn't, if they're gonna win in, like I said, games 83 onward. That big ad has to come on the back end, just because they just don't have it at the moment. And it's going to all come down to health, like I mentioned earlier. Tonight was a good example of the lack of depth, I think.
Yeah, obviously I've been one that's been in the camp that a big swing on D is likely a bigger priority, though I do think both are needed, because at 5-on-5 offensively, the Jets do continue to really struggle to generate anything consistently, though I do think they could have those answers by going to some identity pairs. Talk about a good time on that conversation. Slick nails this. Have you guys considered that Villy isn't 6'7"? I mean, come on, guys. Focus on the important stats. Like,
can we teach him Russian?
Tico Napoli also says Villy's still paying for that blunder in Philly 4 years ago. On this topic, I'm going to say two things. I don't have necessarily a problem with Heinola seeing the bench in a game like this. I didn't think this was his strongest game. And it's clearly a comfort thing with how much Vegas was spending time in the D zone, and the Jets Arneal clearly not trusting Heinola. Where my problem comes in is kind of what you say is on that goal against Logan Stanley, shovels the puck up Kyle Connor's ass, who can't corral it, gets jumped all over. Mark Scheifele gets caught cheating up the ice, and it's 1-1. I mean, I just don't know. And I was having a conversation after the game with someone that I know, go back and forth with, tunes into this show on Twitter, that said, without mentioning Pionk or Stanley, who thinks Heinola has played well since he's been up? My answer today was, in my opinion, he's been up and down. I liked his last two games. I didn't see another step forward today. So I don't want to make this about Heinola was good today, because I didn't see it personally. I'm still going to him over the other guys. And at some point, it's just like, when does the organization have a come to Jesus moment? Because this conversation moves on Twitter too. 3 NHL coaches have overlooked him for other players. And I hear that, and I get why people go to that. But I think there's a bigger conversation here when 3 coaches have gone to the same lineup configuration. 3 coaches have done this. Like, there's just so many similarities with each guy that's been hired by the people above them and how they approach things, that maybe we should be asking a bigger question than necessarily the Ville Heinola one. Unfortunately, Logan Stanley is a lock in the Winnipeg Jets lineup.
Yep.
It is what it is. He could throw up, as you said, all over the puck, and it will not matter. This is the world we're living in. The important people that are making the important decisions are telling you all that you're blind and don't know what you're talking about, so maybe consider that. That's how they are treating this situation, and at some point, I guess we're just expected to keep shoving it and watching it, because nothing's going to change. That's how invested they are at this point. And choices nail it. Basically, Stanley is in the lineup to be a punching bag, so Lowry doesn't need to fight. That's what it comes down to. It's as simple as it is. The rest doesn't matter. It's frustrating. It's annoying. Just go get some value for Heinola this year, and we move forward.
Yeah. It's not that Heinola played well and that it's just the overarching issue of, I don't think they evaluate NHL defensemen well at the executive and above level, and they have so much more room for mistakes for a player that seems to cause a lot more of a negative impact on the game, as opposed to the room that they give other younger players to come in who don't make as much of a negative impact, but still somehow have to be the ones to ride the pine and not be able to play through those things and work through them on the ice. You know, some guys can get better in the press box, other guys can't.
Turd also makes a point that I agree with too, despite the benching. Turd says, I'd give Villy the shift in overtime over Fleury. Time and space to move the puck is what Villy specializes in. And I do think it was asking Hayden Fleury for what he is to do a lot, cost you. You have a player that you've been developing to be that type of player that you're stuck on the bench. It is, it's the Winnipeg way, brother. It's the Winnipeg way. Slick says, when Sammy comes back, who's playing left side on the third pair? 24 would be my guess. But when it comes to Logan Stanley, I would never bet against Logan Stanley. So
I will go out on the limb and say it will be Logan Stanley.
Yeah, that limb's probably
unfortunately
accurate.
I will. Yeah, that's what I'm putting my money on.
And it was interesting. It was interesting because where this conversation kind of kept going was the idea that people want to feel vindicated for their defensive 14. And I find this interesting. I find it interesting that, and I have no problem. Come at me for my takes. I'm actually going to acknowledge one where I got wrong on the decor in a second here, and I think that's important. It's funny when fans kind of go at other fans for how they feel about a prospect when the GM, who you're not allowed to say anything about, has talked up Ville Heinola himself year after year after year after year. I mean, there's some other people that have those conversations, but my way of looking at this is if you're looking at this as people want to feel vindicated about Ville Heinola rather than people potentially see a guy that could be better than what we're getting out of 64, let's turn that scope around for a second, because that exact conversation could be had about the Winnipeg Jets and Logan Stanley. Because at this point, by playing him, who are you fooling other than yourself trying to vindicate the trade up from 2016? So that's just my twist on some of the arguments that come bounce back my way. I acknowledged I didn't think Heinola was had a great night. But again, if your problems lie with people with that kind of take, I think you should start really shifting your focus and open up to who's making those decisions, who also was defending that player, who's been in charge of manipulating that stuff for years and years, and we might understand some answers into the Winnipeg Jets way. I will say this, though. I was having a conversation with my buddy John, and obviously, big Dylan DeMello defender years past. And I got to say, I broke my own rule, and I know Choices has a similar rule in the chat. We talked about this earlier in the year about not wanting to pay term and money to non-elite 30-plus year-old players. And I've started coming around on the idea that we really overvalued Dylan DeMello as a defenseman because of just how porous the right side has been. And I am actually really starting to worry about Dylan DeMello here.
Yeah, it's more than just 1 game, 5 games, 10 games. We're almost at halfway through the season. So it's not looking like a great investment at the moment, and I'm hoping that it's something strange that he can still put back together, but it could also just be Father Time, who seems to be undefeated so far.
Yes, yeah, it's one of those things. HH Living Loco on the topic I was just kind of having around the Heinola Stanley thing says, I love that they draft these undersized skilled puck moving D and then tell them to fuck off in favor of Logan Stanley. Like, yeah, I mean, yeah, there's just not much to say there. Choices said what is crazy is they dig in and will not move off their position no matter, even if it's hurting the team. And we got a new someone's willing to step up on the left side. Slick says, it's okay, guys. I'll learn to skate soon, and despite being right-handed, I'll play third pair on my offside. Slick, are you 6'8" potentially? Do you got that extra inch? We need to know here. We got to get you past the Stanley scale.
Or if you speak Russian.
Yeah. If you speak Russian, that might help too. D. Conapoli says, Nick, Dumoulin from the Ducks instead of DeMello. I'd aim higher. I think we got to really aim higher there. But you know what? Let's get in. Mikey, I know you had a bit of a headache coming into the show. I'm pretty tired. Let's get into the 3 stars and take off from this one.
All right, let's do it. Alrighty, so for my 3rd star tonight, gonna give it to Chibs. He was good out there. He was a lot of fun to watch. I'm really hoping that he finds a way to carve out a spot on that 4th line. Maybe it would be nice. They could use the help, and I thought he had a good game tonight. Number 2, Connor Hellebuyck. The Jets aren't even in this game without Connor Hellebuyck. I don't know where the Jets are in the league without Connor Hellebuyck. Thank God that we have him every single day. Number 1 star, no question, Vladimir Mestikov, out there speaking Russian to Nikita Chibrikov today. I'm so proud of him. That's my 3 stars. Who you got?
As usual, I'm going to jump back into the chat before announcing the 3 stars, but I will remember this time because we were reminded going off air that I didn't name them, and I think last game was obvious. I was going Velarde, Connor, Scheif in that order, 3-1. DB says, agreed, Nick. DD needs to snap out of it or he's 3rd pairing soon, except ... who goes up. And I mean, I keep wanting to see Colin Miller, get a look there, but he can't even get into the lineup. So that's a good call. They don't have the guys they trust to kind of take that look. Slick also says he is 6'9" on stilts, so we might be working with something here.
There we go.
And he knows how to say yes and no in Russian, so he's basically fluent.
Sold.
So, hey.
Signed.
Sold.
Get you that ELC.
Yeah, so for 3 stars today, I was flirting between 2 different people for the 3rd star. Really liked the Cole Perfetti game and a lot of what he brought, so I was going to give him the honors, but that Josh Morrissey shot and what he means to this team, the celebration, I got to go J-Mo, 3rd star. 2nd star, I'm going over to Vegas. I'm rewarding the Winnipeg boy. Thought he had a really good night tonight. Keegan Colasar, 2nd star, and Connor Hellebuyck, my number 1.
No question.
I don't know who Bear Point is, but great way to end the show. The last comment on Twitch, Bear Point says, Logan Stanley for captain. And, who's to say when Adam Lowry expires that they just don't do that? We don't know.
I can't wait for the Logan Stanley statue. It's going to be so expensive. They got to make it so big. It's going to be so tall.
I will be there to cut the ribbon. I will be there to cut the ribbon.
Right on.
All right, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, being here to support this show, support the fellas, support From Financial, and hey, we're back Saturday. Mikey's Habs, though. Maybe I'll convert him to a Jets fan there. At the rink Saturday. We'll be back Saturday. You have a good rest of your week. Take it easy.
You guys know the drill. Tell 2 friends to tell 2 friends. Rate, review, and remember, it's the landing strip for all your Winnipeg Jets post-game shows.